Okay. I know we're waiting for a couple of other people who registered, but I'm going to get started here in the sake of time, and also because I want to hear from you at some point during the presentation. This is one of a couple of info sessions that we're launching to bring some awareness to the Distributed Energy Resources Working Group that's national across Canada, that we're looking to get kind of the key stakeholders that exist already within our Quest network, as well as some external that we're trying to bring to the conversation, and looking to get feedback on what you'd like to see, and some of the topics that we're looking to cover, and interested in what you want to get out of it and what value it can bring to you. So today we'll be going over kind of the desirability of why we launched this working group, some of the objectives of it, the format, and some of the things that we want to focus on into 2019, and what the outcomes, what are we looking to get at, and so and who the participants are going to be in this. So looking for your feedback towards the end. There'll be a couple of polls that I will launch to the audience, and then I'll open up the floor for some discussion. Trying to keep the sessions here to a decent amount of people so we can allow for that type of discussion. And yeah, so I'll get started here. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Julie Bunker. I am the Senior Lead for Western Services for Quest, so I'm located in Calgary, Alberta, but I've lived and worked in the energy industry in Ontario and New Brunswick as well, and I'm the lead for this working group, which is national in scope, but also has some regionally focused sessions. And through this, I'm collaborating with my colleagues who lead other working groups for Quest across Canada, as a lot of what we're talking about here aligns with some of the great work that they've done or are doing in some of their projects and working groups. All right, I just want to make sure that everyone can see my screen here. So if you cannot, please let me know. I have allowed everybody, all the attendees or participants, to talk, so you should be able to talk if you unmute yourself. But if you're not speaking, I encourage you to please stay on mute so we don't get any background noise. All right, the energy revolution. So the power grid is considered by many to be the largest machine in the world. It spans continents. It provides electricity through wires thousands of kilometers away and delivers power to end users at the exact second that they need it. We have the ability to go into a room and flick on a light and plug in our phones without thinking twice about it in our country, which we're very fortunate about. It's incredibly balanced, complex, and a synchronized machine, and despite some of the failures and events that we might see in it in some regions, it's remarkable at delivering reliable energy to all of us on almost every second of every day. However, the centralized top-grid delivery system and stable business model for utilities that has endured for the last century is being disrupted by a number of drivers, causing an adaptation and an evolution in how we produce, move, and use energy. And some of the drivers that we're seeing, which are coming from the community level or on the distribution system, is a need for more local system resilience in the face of increased climate events, which have caused prolonged outages and cost millions in dollars for utilities and energy management, and it costs money leaving communities. Here in Alberta, we've been very fortunate that we don't see that happening very often, but when we have large events like fires and floods, it does happen. Also more so in remote communities. I know when I lived in the East Coast, it was a little bit different. We saw a lot of outages. And so that is a driver on that reliability of energy systems. The rise of smart, cleaner technologies that offer a new way to generate and manage energy at the local level. So consumers are being offered a lot of different solutions that allow them more options than they have in the past. There's a global drive to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and reduce our carbon footprint. That has also become a driver for looking at more efficient ways to generate and use energy and move energy, and also looking at renewable energy sources, as well as a local source of revenue generation and an energy cost for security and stability of rates. So we see a number of drivers, and whether we like it or not, they are causing disruption to the traditional model of the system, both the business that has operated a certain way for a very long time, as well as the grid architecture. So we're used to seeing the electrons from the energy come from the generation side through transmission, converted at substations and through the distribution system. And now we're seeing that energy moving both ways on the grid, which is a difference. And so this is providing a little bit of context for the conversation, but I'm assuming most people on the phone are already quite aware of this, so I'm going to go through it quite quickly. So as we have communities looking at new ways and solutions available to them, it's also changing the relationship that utilities have with their customers, the business model that we've seen before, as well as how energy moves on the grid. And so as we look at things like generation, storage, different controls, and cheaper ways of generating electricity, the end user ends up being a major source of generation as well, potentially, rather than that centralized, plants that we see out in the middle of nowhere. And this touches every level of the electrical system, as well as our gas systems as well. So we're looking at both gas and electric distribution. So this is more looking at the electricity distribution side, but the gas and the thermal side of this is also a large component to our energy systems here in Canada. So the challenges, there's a lot going on, but we seem to be finding a lot of large gaps in alignment, coordination, and planning, with a lot of this change in distributed energy resources and moving towards them. So some of the things that we're seeing, we've been going out, we've been working, we do a lot of work with municipalities, utilities, energy service providers and developers, and other organizations with similar mandates. And we've heard a lot of struggles from the municipal side on getting their community engaged to move forward on projects using taxpayers' dollars, getting projects approved through council, and really helping to understand and define, those economic, social, and environmental benefits of projects. Municipalities traditionally aren't energy experts. And so looking at their energy usage and looking at potential generation options is something that's new and a little bit foreign to a lot of them, especially those medium to small sized communities. And so we're finding sometimes a gap in terms of getting the ability to get projects to move forward in an effective manner. We're seeing that for developers that, there's a lot of excitement in terms of getting community-based generation or working, with academic institutions on campuses or in certain commercial complex in bringing in distributed energy resources as a potential energy option. And there's excitement, but things just aren't getting to implementation with projects. So part of that challenge is understanding some of the municipal or institutional processes in government, identifying the right solutions. So, looking at things that actually work for that site and in that area. So we talk a lot about the right source of energy, the right place, and the right time. So what makes sense for them versus popularity of, right now everybody's putting solar panels, we want solar panels. So what actually makes sense? Now, often it's a combination of things. Restrictive procurement policies of the customers that they're trying to provide services to, the timing of funding for projects, aligning with the planning and budget cycles, as well as risk adversity. When you're dealing with taxpayers' dollars, so in the case of municipalities, looking at community-based generation, who this is something new to them. This is often new business models, new partnerships, new technologies. It can often be a challenge in getting projects moving forward. Energy service providers and utilities are also seeing a disruption to their traditional business models, potential loss of business. So, one of the areas we see this is there's so much talk right now about electrification of things with a lot of renewable energy sources. But what about when we're looking at areas where there is a robust gas network and gas distribution. That could also supplement and be part of this puzzle. So we're looking at adapting the business model and service offerings that a lot of utility and energy service providers traditionally have provided, so we can stay relevant. Usually here's your energy bill to customer. Now there's a changing relationship with customers. They have the ability to produce their own energy, and I know I saw this on the east coast of Canada. Except with a lot of the outages, people got tired and thought, well, what if I can generate my own electricity so I have a higher level of reliability? But what is the utility's role in that? They are the energy experts, and so it's that challenge of that reactive versus proactive approach in terms of the change and being able to offer customers the various solutions that others are offering them, regardless of whether the utility does. So understanding some of those municipal institutional processes and governments and matching with the right solutions. And then again, system operators and regulators. This is disruption a lot of the time to the grid architecture and the balance of things. We're used to electricity, gas kind of being distributed in a singular manner, and now we're seeing it both ways on the grid. So ensuring the right source of energy, the right place and the right time, looking at reliability, security, and planning. So not knowing, when you have all these distributed generation all over the grid, what that looks like for future planning, and making sure that there's alignment on that. And, we have a lot of the places existing robust system. I know the system operators sometimes have issues with that of how are we going to balance if we already have a robust system that works well. Now we have a lot of micro generation going, everywhere on the grid. How are we going to manage that? How do we balance that from a grid perspective? And then provincial and federal governments. And these are just some of the challenges. There's a lot of them out there. It can become a complex problem, but it's an exciting problem to have. There's the program development and funding, how to ensure that the right sources, again, right time, right place for future, developing agile policy so that's able to move as we see new technology and new options being available to customers, and aligning with a lot of the key stakeholders on this. The other thing that we're often seeing a lot on is that there's, and there is some great things going on, but it's often being done in a very siloed approach. So there's not necessarily that there's the communities, and when I say communities, I mean municipalities, the industry that exists there, the development that's there, the institution and communities, the provincial entities, and then at a federal level. And so there's a lot of work being done in a more siloed approach, but through what we've seen with a lot of the projects that we've done, that in order to get to successful implementation, it requires more of an alignment between the various levels to make sure that we're looking at the data, the planning, and the objectives going forward in a manner that will cause less disruption and look at more successful projects and implementation where we see the greatest benefit, both across communities and across the overall our energy system. So this, there's often identification here, a need for increasing energy literacy at that community level, better engagement and connection with the provincial entities, and all the way up to the federal level. So that's the challenges, and what I really want to focus here in the DERS working group is a lot on the opportunity side of things. Because while there are challenges and we do want to try to remove some of those barriers, that is one of the objectives here, is there's a lot of potential where we see in communities, for institutions, whether it be economic, social, or environmental opportunities. There's a lot of potential out there. We have a lot of options, and at the end of the day, the technology is there for the most part. It's really just how we adjust our culture, our understanding of our energy systems, and our business models, and the policy that adapts to that. So the possibilities are endless. I think it's an exciting time to be connected to that energy industry. So the question that we really pose is, how do we help communities respond to the need to reduce and optimize their current and future energy use while enhancing the things that are important to them, which is their economic, social, and environmental drivers, and ensuring that they maintain energy reliability and security? Because that's one of the risks here with distributed energy resources in a more decentralized energy system. So how do we enable, on the other side, the market and stakeholders to advance in alignment with this and ensure successful implementation that offers the greatest value to communities while maintaining the integrity of the system? So that's one of the challenges that the market is facing today. And so that's kind of the driver of where we saw the need for the DERS working group, is that there's that lack of alignment between a lot of the stakeholders, that projects are challenged to move forward to implementation, and that we're trying to get to a little bit better energy education, better connections, and helping to take those and influence at a higher level. Make sure all the considerations are on the table. So the focus of the DERS working group, so DERS, distributed energy resources, which are sources of energy, both thermal and electric, that are connected at the distribution system or community level, which is also known as microgeneration. So we're looking at the systems and the drivers that support them. So this is community resilience initiatives, microgrids, energy efficiency programs, different market and policy and regulation. We're looking to identify the social, economic, and environmental considerations in this discussion, and where they should be implemented and what is needed to enable successful implementation. So again, kind of looking at that right source of energy, the right time and the right place, and what is that roadmap or framework for successful implementation? You know, what partnerships need to be in place? What information and considerations are needed? And what policy and regulation or programs or finance models are needed for successful implementation? So the participants in this working group is we're looking to engage the relevant industry stakeholders across multiple sectors. Because as we see it, like I mentioned, that this is often done in a siloed approach where we've got municipalities doing, certain planning and looking at opportunities. We've got utilities looking at their existing business models and how they're adapting it. We've got solution and technology providers that are meeting with the utilities and municipalities in terms of trying to get their solutions implemented. We look at the building and development sector, regulators, and it's often done in a more siloed approach. So it's important to get, our energy systems are very connected. And we're looking to get the right stakeholders across the multiple sectors better connected, aligned, and informed together on how we can move forward for successful implementation. So having a multi-stakeholder discussion, we believe, is really important to the success of this, and doesn't often happen. So the value, what is this going to offer to you? And this is where I also, towards the polling and towards the end, when we have this have your say moment, that I want to reach out and ask where you see the value. Because I think it's really important, and I want to make sure that this is adding value to the industry, but where I'm seeing it for communities, being part of this discussion will ensure and will help you learn from other communities who are also looking at community-based generation or microgeneration. It'll help you understand what your options are. Who are the key players? Have your needs heard. There's a lot of challenges in understanding the municipal governance model in terms of getting projects move forward and what you need to do so. Understand some of the other financing and business models that are out there, potential partnerships, and aligning better with some of the providers and what you're looking for in your communities. What your council needs to get projects moved to implementation and move forward. The product and service providers or developers. This is an opportunity in the discussions for you to identify potential projects and customers. Understand their drivers and their barriers, their governance and approval models, as well as the policy that will allow them to move forward on some of the things that they might want to and how you help them get there. Alignment and collaboration. Creating a positive story around this. We want to see successful projects that get to implementation that you can then take and grow that based on your lessons learned. One of the things that, this is a national conversation, and prior to working with Crest, I worked in consulting for 10 years. I know that sometimes when it comes to the product and service providers, that there's an inherent level of competition and confidentiality. But, you know, when we're looking at a lot of the developers who are working in, you know, small municipalities in Northern Ontario or municipalities here in Alberta, you know, I encourage you that, you know, there's the piece of the pie here. The pie is huge. There is so much opportunity here, and there's a piece of it for everybody. And what I would encourage, and one of the things that we're going to be doing in this working group, is sharing those lessons learned, sharing those success stories, and how you've been able to overcome barriers in your own market. So we can try to take some of those lessons learned and apply them to other places within Canada. So we're looking at creating more of those positive success stories, because very easily, you know, we look at, you know, smart meters in some places have become something that, you know, the public doesn't want to see because of a couple of failed projects in some cases, just to simply put it. So how do we create a positive story around energy solutions and try to get to successful projects so we can create more opportunity for this where it's necessary? And cross-region connections as well. So when you're looking to enter into different markets, potentially, that you'll get that with a national discussion as well. Regulators and policymakers, so cross-sector feedback. One of the things, so instead of, you know, it's not just from one particular industry, but looking at multiple sectors and industries that might provide similar feedback up to regulators and various levels of government and policymakers. So identifying, really understanding what the drivers are for distributed energy resources, the barriers to success, and how we help to alleviate and remove those. So in some cases, I know we're doing work right now with one of my colleagues, Richard Laszlo, with the combined heat, and there's a great program, but there's certain restrictions that exist within it that don't allow the greatest potential for some of the projects. So helping to identify what comes from the industry and the multiple stakeholders, what some of those barriers are and how do we remove them. The format of the working group. So the working group is intended to be a national network with rotating regional in-person sessions. So the facilitated sessions will be held once a month. And the model that was chosen around this is considering the varying provincial policy, regulation, and markets that we see. So obviously it varies province to province. And there's a need to drive change at this level, but there's also recognizing the value of sharing lessons learned, opportunities, and information across the country. And we often work in a very kind of, you know, you put your blinders on into what's going on in the market, you know, but there's, you know, I've learned great things about what some of the municipalities are doing in Nova Scotia, or what I saw working in New Brunswick, and how those lessons learned might be transferable to some of the utilities, municipalities, projects or developers here in my market in Alberta. So I think that there's a lot of lessons learned, and not even within Canada, but also externally. So my intent is to bring in some of those success cases and lessons learned from projects internationally as well. There's some great things going on in Scotland. There's some interesting projects that are happening in the States. And, you know, let's look at those, see how they got through to successful implementation, and what are some of the lessons that we can learn from there. So I think there's opportunity for a national conversation, and also to be heard nationally about some of the things that you might be finding in your market. But nothing can replace the value of those face-to-face, in-person sessions and relationships that can be developed in-person, more regionally focused sessions. So it's a combination of both. So it will likely be regional in-person sessions, and we will facilitate that with either national, open with people nationally on the phone during those sessions, or follow up with a national call afterwards to kind of debrief on some of the findings of that session. So we aim to create a neutral, trusted platform to educate, connect participants, and influence the industry regulators at all levels of government. Like I said, it's, you know, building that trust and relationships between participants can be really effective in accomplishing and driving important agenda items in a successful manner. And so we often ask people to leave the ego at the door, look at the opportunities for learning, collaboration, and let's create more success in the market going forward. We also work closely with a lot of similarly aligned organizations to help streamline efforts. So there's other organizations across the region and efforts. So here in Alberta, there's Decentralized Energy Canada, Energy Efficiency Alberta, Energy Futures Lab, Smart Grid Canada, and we've connected with many of them to help align on initiatives and streamline efforts. So there's a lot of great things going on, and we're trying to make sure we're moving the industry forward together in a positive place. Like I said, we recognize that there's a lot of capacity here to be able to grow projects and kind of grow distributed energy resources where appropriate. And so we're all working towards that same vision. One of the other things, and I'll get to this on the next page here, that has been requested and said would be of value to certain people that I want to launch with the working group is a private LinkedIn page for sharing events, industry news, and other things. So one of the participants, MJ from AECOM, who's a large consulting firm, had mentioned that she's like, I am one person working on kind of smart grid, microgrid. I can't be everywhere. There's so many events going on across the country and great things that are happening. I can't be everywhere at once. It'd be great to have a platform to share that's live, to share updates on relevant events, news, and times. So especially if you know that there's an event going on in Ontario and you can't get there, but you know it's relevant to you. So you can find out, this would be very specific to our working group. You can find out, is anybody going to that? Bring back some points. And those who are going can kind of do a bit of a debrief. And Quest will look to do this as well as we attend a lot of industry events across the country in terms of, who is there, what were the key things that we found out about that event, what were the interesting and new things that we saw, etc., as well as a place to share live information in real time. And then finally, regular updates and an annual summary report. So on an annual basis, I will look to summarize some of the discussions that we've talked about, what are the findings, and then where we move forward from there to develop the work plan for the following year. And then one of the things that I've heard would be of great value to a number of different key stakeholders is exploring various applications through case studies. So this is one of my favorite examples of a successful distributed energy resource project. And I think it's important through this discussion, and we try to keep it very neutral. We want to look at where they make sense and where they don't. And so this example of energy storage and demand response for improved reliability in an outage-prone community in Field, British Columbia, I think is an example of where a solution made perfect sense. So BC Hydro provides electricity to the town of Field, which has a population of about 170 people, just on the other side of Alberta here in Yoho National Park. So Field is the closest substation to Field is 55 kilometers away in Golden, BC. And along those 55 kilometers, they have a single 25 kV line, which follows along the Canadian Pacific Railway line. So it's following along the trail and is also, so they can only do maintenance on it when they coordinate with train schedules for all line repairs. So that's one of the things that's an issue for them. But the area is also prone to frequent avalanches, rock slides, falling trees, extreme weather and snow events up there. So anytime they have an outage, it has to be coordinated with the rail schedule, and that ends up resulting in a ridiculous amount of outages for that community a year. So that impacts their business, their operations, and the safety and security of their residents. When you're in the middle of winter and you're without power and you're without heat for 8+ hours at a time on a regular basis, it's a serious health and safety issue as well. So in order to mitigate some of the reliability issues in Field, BC Hydro evaluated a number of alternatives, and they looked at energy storage and some backup diesel generation. They looked at the cleaner option for battery. It was more expensive, but from a longer-term solution, BC Hydro put forward the money for an energy storage and demand response improved reliability project. and the project was awarded funds to install a 1 megawatt battery backup system in order to provide backup to enhance customer supply and reliability in the community. So it's connected to the grid, but the grid charges the battery, and when there's an outage, it switches over, so it's islanded, and the battery provides power to the community. So it isolates and does an automatic switching over to the battery. Now, originally, the battery was supposed to last up to 7 megawatt hours of charge. But where I find that this is successful, not only in providing more reliable source of energy and energy security and reliability, but it also brought the community together in a way that was unexpected. So I'm not entirely sure who sends out the Twitter, but they got the community on Twitter, and the battery backup, the battery system here sends out a tweet to the community residents to say, you have X amount of juice left right now in the system. So you've got 5 hours left. And so the community has actually pulled together on conservation and energy efficiency, and to do things like, nobody turn on your stoves. We're having a barbecue at the community hall in order to make those charges last longer in prolonged outages. And they ended up having one of the charges last up to 24 hours. So it's this kind of project, the concept that takes, rural communities and islands where this could be a great solution to. And while battery storage, it's expensive, but so is shipping in and trucking in diesel to far off locations. So I think this is one of my favorite examples of where a distributed energy resource provided not only safety, security, reliability to the community through secure energy source. It showed a partnership between the municipality and the utility, as well as a couple of other funders. And it also brought the community together in another way to be more aware of their energy usage and come together for community engagement. This isn't in all cases. What do we do in major city centers where we have a robust, reliable grid system? I think that's a whole other discussion. All right, so have your say. I'm going to launch a couple of polls here. Give me 1 second. Where I want to get a bit of your input on what you would like to see. So, launching poll. You should see a poll that's come up that's asked you 3 different questions. The first one being, what stream do you currently fall best into? And so, like I said, there's 3 streams that I see here of what you would like to get out of this. There's that educate and inform. So are you a municipality or even a developer that's looking for better insight into what options are available, getting to understand the drivers for municipalities, so your customers, or understanding what options are out there for municipalities and wanting to learn from others? You could be under that connecting piece. So you're looking for connections. You're already at a point where you believe that you're moving forward with projects and you want to get connected to the right service providers. You want to get connected to the right financiers and connected maybe to other communities who are doing similar projects. And then there's that influence piece. Maybe you're looking for influence. You are ready to make change. You've experienced challenges in policy and regulation, and you are looking to help on that advocacy piece. You want to influence change in your ability to move forward on certain projects. Can people see the poll? I don't see anybody has voted yet. Ah, there we go. All right, so encouraging more of you to do the voting. The next question is, what would you like the discussion to focus on in 2019? This focuses on everything from looking at community-based generation projects all the way up to looking at non-generation solutions, so energy efficiency waste heat recovery, storage solutions, or load shifting? There we go. There are a couple more votes in. And then finally, the third question is, what outcomes would be of greatest value to you? So are you looking for a roadmap for successful implementation? Are you looking for support for your project? So expertise, financing, solutions. Are you looking for advocacy on policy and regulation, or getting connected with key stakeholders and enabling collaboration for projects? All right. Wonderful. Thank you for voting. Got one or two people more that could potentially vote. I'm going to take a screenshot so I can share it with you about what the results are. There we go. Wonderful. And finally, I believe I can end the polling and share the results with you. So you should be able to see the results on the screen now. Let me know if you can't. It's pretty even distribution between what stream this current audience falls into. But Connect is the most. So there's some on that educate and inform side. There's some who are looking to connect, and there's an even amount with the educate on who's looking to, at this point, to move forward on influencing. In terms of what you'd like the discussion to focus on in 2019, I see quite a number of votes for changing the business model. So engaging, aligning with other stakeholders, and developing potential partnerships, which is excellent. And then finally, what outcomes would be of greatest value to you? And I see two of them that are tied here. One of them, the roadmap for successful integration of distributed energy resources, and the other one is a better consideration or a better understanding of all the considerations. Excellent. So thank you for participating in that. All right, moving on. Now that you've had an overview, I'm curious to hear from you. So I'm going to open it up to the audience of, if you're a municipality and you have been moving forward on projects, what are one of the key things that you've had as a barrier or challenge? I know I've heard from a number of the kind of developers or service providers of, great excitement from municipalities, real challenge in moving forward. I'll open it up quickly to see if anybody wants to share some of their experiences. Or what the drivers are for them. You just have to take yourself off mute. There, everyone should be able to talk now. I just allowed everybody to talk. Anyone? Insight? Feedback? What keeps you up at night? Have you led a successful project that you want to be able to, that you think has value in sharing with others? Okay, well, what I will encourage you to do is submit these. If you have any feedback, just send an email to myself after the session of some of the feedback, or if you had something that you might want to present understanding this platform, and we can connect afterwards. So why Quest? So I know a lot of you are familiar with Quest. You're engaged either as a subscriber to our newsletter, you've seen on social media, but in terms of why Quest is leading something like this, I'll give you a quick high-level overview. So for those who don't really know Quest, we are a national, neutral, nonpartisan, business-friendly nonprofit service organization, and we have a vision that is local. So we focus on communities and help develop resilient, affordable, healthy, and prosperous Canadian communities by building awareness and support of efficient, integrated, and localized energy systems. So our vision is for every community in Canada to become a smart energy community. So that focuses on lowering energy costs for citizens and corporations, a stronger local economy, improved resilience and security, and you know, almost by a happy accident, you know, cleaner air, land, and water. So a smart energy community seamlessly integrates these things. You often start with energy efficiency and right-sizing your load and integrating both conventional energy networks and our existing infrastructure with also looking at opportunities for harnessing local energy sources. So we do this a lot of the time through a land use planning approach, which is familiar to municipalities, but not necessarily always on the energy side of things. So some of the services that we offer is our working groups, which I know some of you are part of some of our other working groups across the country, events. So we hold a number of regional accelerator events that all have a theme across the country. Our advisory services, as well as research and tools and projects. And so these focus on the core of what we do. We work with a lot of communities or municipalities. That's kind of our bread and butter side of things. So we do everything on projects from, we look at the community energy planning and helping to enable communities to not only develop a plan, but how to get to implementation with a lot of the things that are in the plan. Right now I'm working with 12 communities across Canada and through partnering utilities for community resilience. So looking at community resilience from energy lens and how energy actually touches almost every aspect of municipal operations, from infrastructure planning and asset management through to even emergency response. You know, our energy systems are connected to our communications, our fuel sources, our ability to stay in our homes and move around our communities. We also do a lot on the energy mapping side of things. We're doing research right now on innovative policy at a national level, planning alignment between key stakeholders, looking from system operators to utilities down to communities. And so that bread and butter is working with the communities. But then we also work with a lot of Canadian energy industry, governments, developers, technology providers, so we can understand and connect all aspects of our very interconnected energy systems. So we hold a national leaders dialogue, and that includes everything from system operators to the national government, to utilities, to tech providers like Microsoft and Siemens, and consulting firms. So we really do have a multi-stakeholder, multi-industry network so we can truly understand the full energy system. If you want to know more and you're not currently involved in Quest, I encourage you to go to our fancy newly launched website, which I find quite intuitive and quite happy with. You can learn more about the working group through Get Involved. And if you're joining the working group, we ask that you are a Quest subscriber. And so there's some information on our website about what it means to be a Quest subscriber. So that is gaining access to our network across Canada of, like I said, different participants from all different industries, getting involved in one of our working groups and having your company profiled as a smart energy in the Smart Energy Communities catalog, which we have a new one coming up being published in Q2 of 2019. There's a number of other benefits, including getting connected to that network. We work with you on promoting your events, and providing you with industry information and insight. I see that I've got a comment here from Terry. Excellent. Thank you, Terry. I'm going to move back to that have your say. I know Terry has had some audio challenges here, but Terry is from the municipality of Digby, Nova Scotia. Terry's note in the chat says our municipality is part of an inferior transmission line in the province that's 96 kV. We've been advocating for upgrades without success, and to have the utility address the necessary upgrades required to no avail. We believe it is inhibiting our ability to attract economic development to the area. So interesting perspective of how economic development and energy are linked together. At the same time, our region is highlighted to attract small-scale tile development for both research and commercialization. We are attempting to mitigate the lack of grid capacity through energy storage. Again, looking at multiple solutions for an issue here, which is excellent, Terry. We have looked at several options over the years as technology has progressed. The one that we think checks all the right boxes is CAES, Compressed Air Energy Storage, which has the capacity to provide thermal loads as well as smooth the grid at peak demand. Our dilemma is that our province and utility appreciate our efforts to include pre-feasibility studies, but neither wants to partner financially or lead it, and everyone describes the project as being leading edge, but that's where it stops. Excellent, Terry. Thank you so much for the feedback. It's shocking how many times we hear this, where we look at it, there's a problem. The municipality, in partnership sometimes with other developers or service providers, comes up with a solution. But there is that lack of alignment between the utility, the province, the municipality, the regulators, and actually getting things moving forward. And it's hard because when we can identify what we see as those benefits and what will work for this, there seems to be a risk-adverse nature in actually moving things forward. I think this is a perfect example of one of the situations that would be great to bring to the conversation, and like I said, and address. And I know that there are many other cases of this happening across the country. So what are those main barriers? What is the hesitation on both financial, on partnership for both financial and for leading the project? And I think that's really important. And Terry also mentions that they're a small municipality without vast wealth or other than natural resources. And this is where we're seeing a lot of the the barriers is larger cities seem to have the budgets, they have the resources, the expertise, and they often get support because they have the populations there. It's the more rural, medium, and small and remote municipalities, which make up a large portion of Canada, that we see being challenged with getting projects moved forward. And yet there is so much potential there, both economic. Recently I was in Campbellton, New Brunswick, and a lot of the population has left Campbellton after a mill left. They're having trouble keeping the rec center open, which is a large facility with a rink and has high energy costs because it's an older building. And they're looking at ways of how to be able to, this is the hub of where the community meets at the rec center and where people go, and still there's that hub of activity, and they hold events, and they're having trouble keeping it open, and they're looking for solutions on waste heat recovery, on energy efficiency, on generating their own electricity. So this isn't just an energy matter, it becomes an important economic driver, social factor, as well as sometimes, in some cases, an environmental factor in terms of reducing a carbon footprint for communities. And so that's really a lot of the focus of what Quest does. The larger municipalities often, Terry mentioned, attract funding through FCM, and they've applied for it in the past as a generator to burn biogas from an anaerobic digester, again, with no availability and no success. So, Terry, I can't tell you how often we hear this across Canada, and that's one of the things we're working to do is how do we remove these barriers and get to implementation. So thank you so much for your feedback, and I'm sure there's other people on the line that can relate. I'd love to continue the conversation. Like I said, if you're able to reach out individually, please do so. If you are, and this is where we're trying to make the connection. So here Terry is coming from the municipality, identifying where their challenges are. Early in the week, I had conversations with some of the developers and service providers that are saying, the municipality wants to do things, but with the way that our business works, I can't get the certain funding in place and get through approval through their council in a way that they want to see it. Then we have, these solutions, and the regulator is saying, you know what, you can't actually do that, or that is the role of the utility to do something, but there's certain restrictions on what you can do here. And I think making those connections is really important. And that is the platform that we're trying to create here between that educate, influence, educate, connect, and then eventually influence. So open it up again to any other questions or feedback on the line. If not, please reach out to myself if you are interested in joining the working group conversation. Like I said, when we talked about format, the intent is for it to be monthly in frequency, but regionally focused sessions that rotate. So that doesn't mean that you have to attend every one if it doesn't apply to you. The different sessions will have a theme. So they'll either be on the theme of educate, connect, or influence based on the topic of the conversation. So there will be structure to it. If you have any feedback, if you would like to see something that I have not mentioned or included as part of the conversation, I'd love to hear from you. We're, like I said, we're hoping really for the end game of this is to work with those key stakeholders, better align them, help to remove some of those barriers, and get even that communicated up at the national level of what change can be done, so we have a better market and a better platform to be able to move projects forward where they make sense. So I thank you for your time today and participating. We're coming up to the end of our call here. I'll leave it out there in case you have any other questions. Like I said, if there's any other case studies that you think are great examples that you want to see in here, I'd appreciate those as well. Any questions from anybody else on the line? So we don't have a huge group here, so don't be nervous about speaking up. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you could see value in this, regardless of where you stand in terms of the spectrum of stakeholders. It's important that we bring everyone to the table for the conversation. And I look forward to connecting with you in the future on this. Thank you so much and have a great day. I heard, when do we anticipate this working group to begin? I'm going to say March. Throughout the rest of February here, I'm going to be doing one other info session. So if you have anybody else that you think should be, would like to hear about the session, I will be launching another info session that I can email out to you, and we'll be posting to our newsletters and to social media and on our website again. I think the first actual session, so once I get those people on board, will occur in March, and that will set the stage for the conversation. Following this call, what I can do to send out to you as follow-up information is I've developed a project charter. So it's kind of a 2-page document so you understand what participation in the working group means, as well as a backgrounder, which includes a lot of the information that was included in this presentation. And I can tell you, so at this point in time, we have a wide range of municipalities, municipal type organizations, technology and service providers, consultants from small ones that operate in small municipalities up to organizations like AECOM that are large consulting firms that operate at a national level and can bring in a national perspective or international perspective as well as other provincial government organizations and system operators and utilities and energy service providers. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I appreciate it. Be safe out there. I know across Canada we've got varying weather conditions. So be safe, and hopefully we'll connect again soon. Thank you so much.